All right, we're good to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. What a great presentation to follow up. I'm thrilled to get started. My name's Alicia Lilick, and I'm a librarian and emerging technology specialist at the National Institutes of Health Library. Today, I'll be introducing a class and toolkit that I developed called Crafting Your Generative AI Usage Strategy. I hope this session not only offers practical guidance, but also inspires other libraries to support their users in effectively adopting and leveraging generative AI tools. So I'm part of the NIH library, and we serve as the biomedical research library for NIH's intramural researchers, as well as for several health and human services agencies. And one of my key goals is to provide cutting edge support in understanding and adopting new technologies. Like most of the world, we were initially unprepared for the big surge in interest in generative AI when tools like ChatGPT became publicly available. As you might expect, the federal government is still in the process of developing clear policies and guidelines for the appropriate use of these tools, which has left many of our researchers with a lot of questions and concerns. For the last several years now, I've been offering introductory training sessions on AI and machine learning, covering topics like AI literacy and more recently, prompt engineering. About 6 months ago, a researcher approached me with an interesting dilemma. She was working with an incoming summer intern and suspected that some of the pre-work submitted by that intern had been generated by ChatGPT. So instead of focusing on potential misconduct, we instead had a meaningful conversation about when and why someone might use these tools in research. And this discussion ended up growing into a lab-wide dialogue where they collectively defined appropriate use cases for generative AI in their work. I was really inspired by that experience, and I realized there were very few resources available on the topic. So I set out to develop a training session to help researchers make informed decisions about when and how to incorporate generative AI tools into their projects. So from the start, I knew this class needed to cover how to assess different use cases for generative AI. And I also felt that it was equally important to address documenting and attributing the use of these tools. However, I recognize that my own perspective wouldn't be enough. So I sought input from a diverse group of experts, researchers, computer and data scientists, scholarly communication librarians, and highly experienced generative AI users. With their feedback, I realized I needed to include a section on verifying the output of generative AI models, and I was also able to refine a clear approach for AI attribution. Most importantly, it became evident that a standard training session wouldn't be sufficient. Attendees needed something they could actively use beyond the session. So I restructured my concept of the course to center around a core resource, an 11-page customizable toolkit. So the toolkit I developed, and it wasn't quick, it took me some time, was shared with attendees at 3 key points: before, during, and after the class. This approach ensured that participants had ample time to familiarize themselves with the material and engage with it at their own pace. I also made the toolkit available in 2 formats: an editable Word document and a fillable PDF to accommodate different preferences and working styles. Now, the toolkit itself covers several critical topics designed to help researchers use Gen AI tools responsibly and effectively. So these topics include task appropriateness, basically understanding which tasks are suitable for AI assistance and which require human expertise. I also looked at application assessment, identifying potential applications of generative AI within workflows and establishing guidelines for their use. Then we talked about output verification methods, best practices for reviewing and validating AI-generated content to ensure accuracy and credibility. There was a whole section on documentation, including a sample documentation form, which provided guidance on keeping thorough records of when and how AI tools were used in research to maintain transparency. And then a whole section on attribution. So people could properly cite AI contributions in publications, presentations, and other research outputs to avoid ethical concerns. And then finally, of course, something everyone wanted to know was policies. So I had a section on current and evolving federal and institutional guidelines for the ethical use of AI in research settings. So throughout the session, I encourage attendees to actively follow along with the toolkit, using it as a guide to apply the concepts we discussed in real time. And by engaging with the toolkit during the class, they could begin developing a practical framework for integrating generative AI into their research processes. And after the session, attendees were encouraged to continue using the toolkit as a reference and a resource. It's designed to be a living document that can evolve with their needs as AI tools and policies continue to change. This approach helps to reinforce the idea that AI literacy is not a one-time event, but an ongoing process of learning and adaptation. So in addition to the content that I developed for the toolkit, I also had 3 main learning objectives that I wanted the attendees to walk away with by the end of the training session. First, my goal was for attendees to have the skills to assess the appropriate use cases for generative AI tools within their specific research or work context. This means being able to critically evaluate when and where these tools can enhance their work while being mindful of ethical and practical considerations. Additionally, I wanted them to develop a customized generative AI usage strategy. This would allow them to create a structured and thoughtful approach to incorporating their tools into daily workflows or projects in a way that's sustainable and effective. And finally, documenting their approach for using generative AI is essential. This not only ensures transparency and accountability in their work, but also helps in tracking the impact of these tools and refining strategies over time. This documentation will be a key part of maintaining best practices and aligning with any emerging guidelines or policies. So I first taught this class on August 27th, 2024. We had 319 attendees, making it one of our most popular and engaging sessions to date. The high turnout underscored the widespread interest in generative AI tools, and the class was filled with lively interactions throughout. Like most of our NIH library classes, we did encourage participants to complete an optional feedback form, and the responses were overwhelmingly positive. Many attendees found the course extremely practical, with one commenting that this material was far and away the most concrete and useful information I've seen thus far on the subject. And another attendee shared that they plan to implement what they had learned, saying, I will adopt this documentation standard in my own practice. That's what you really want to hear when you're training. Looking ahead, I do plan to offer this class again through multiple sessions. I'll limit the number of attendees, however, because I want to foster a more conversational atmosphere and create even more opportunities for active participation and personalized learning. So although the class and toolkit were tailored specifically for researchers at NIH and HHS, the framework is broadly applicable to any researcher seeking practical guidance on responsible generative AI adoption. I also recognize that many libraries are exploring their own roles in AI instruction. So I wanted to make this resource more widely accessible. To support that, I've uploaded the entire toolkit on GitHub. Oops, pardon me. Go back here. Where you can review it and consider how to adopt it for your institution. And I will get that link and throw that in the chat right now. Oh, I can't send it to everyone, but if someone could share that, that would be great. And then I also want to practice what I preach. So I did want to add the following attribution. I use ChatGPT version GPT-4 Omni to assist in outlining and fine-tuning this presentation materials for the session. The output was significantly modified by me to ensure clarity, accuracy, and alignment with my presentation objectives. But that's what I have for you today. I hope you'll have a chance to look over the toolkit and reach out if you have any questions, especially if you do end up using it. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia. We are getting queued up for the next presentation, so just give us a brief minute while we switch everything over.
Is Dahlia here in the conference? Dahlia, you're next. Dahlia from American University, Qatar.
It doesn't seem like our next presenter is online, so we're going to take a brief break. If everyone could be back at 1:30 for our next session, deriving mark records using AI. Thank you.